Thank you very much. So let's say that somebody committed what society would say is a crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to keep it general. And they don't get caught. If this person manages to think and feel that they acted out of impulse, they don't feel guilt, they don't, maybe whether they're distracting themselves from it or not, will there be an additional repercussion, kind of a consequence, if you will, if they manage to feel good about what they did?
We're going to put your question in different words, just for clarification, then we're going to answer it completely. So what you're asking is, if a person has a particular point of view, and that point of view is self-advocating, and that person finds concert with source energy and is inspired to behavior that you could say equals their point of attraction, then do others who condemn that behavior have control about the outcome of what comes next? Is that basically what you said?
I got a little lost.
Well, what we want you to hear is that now we're into that right and wrong thing. And the thing about committing a crime, first we just want to say to you all that there are laws and rules that each and every one of you break every single day. You're all lawless in respect to what you're talking about, because the laws that are established by society who's trying to protect themselves or control you. And so the laws are made from pushing against. And so the people who make the laws or who are wanting to enforce the laws are in a much more resistant place than those who break those laws. Are you wanting us to help you establish a giant right and the wrong in the sky? Because there isn't anything like that. Is there karma? Is there retribution? Is there some great law that I've violated for which I will pay eventually? No.
If two people did the same thing, one feels guilty and one doesn't, they could still deal with the attraction of that guilt, but it wouldn't be repercussions for their crime.
Well, it depends on how guilty they feel. Let's take this a little deeper. This is stirring you up. It's unsettling, isn't it? Because just when you think you've got things squared away, where there's right and wrong, and I intend to do right, and those who do wrong should be punished for the wrong that they do, that's how religions get the foothold that they do. They say, you want to join our club? It's a really good club, and you have to do these things if you want to join our club, and not do these things if you want to join our club. And so you want to join, and so you commit to yourself, you're going to keep those rules. These are religious rules that we're describing here, but secular rules, doesn't matter. Rules. Some club has rules. So you keep the rules, which means you don't do some of the things you feel like doing. And you notice that there are other people not keeping the rules, and they're thriving. They're not getting caught. They're not being punished. And so then you want to ask, wait a minute, I'm keeping your rules and they're not. What gives? And then they give you this answer to this question that you're reaching for here. Oh, well, you can't tell while you're still here on earth in your body. The punishment and judgment, reward and punishment comes once you're dead. That's when you go to heaven or hell, or you pay for it then. There isn't that. There's in this moment alignment or not. And there are a lot of people in alignment who are doing things that others would judge inappropriate. There's a greater law. So let's get to something really important, because that's the strongest question that is happening here in this room. As you've lived lives, not just this one, but a lot of them, and we're talking about you as individuals and you as mass consciousness, we're talking about society in general, we're talking about humanity on planet Earth. As individuals, you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. So you've been creating this new reality that then future generations are born into and begin living. It's the basis into which they are born. Then we've been saying to you that through all of that, you figure out what feels good to you and what doesn't feel good to you. And you begin from personal experience, from a lot of personal experience, from a lot of perspectives, you carve out what you desire. And your inner beings focus upon what you desire. Because there's no shortage consciousness, there's no deprivation. You receiving something doesn't deprive somebody else from it. You getting something doesn't make others have to get it. It really is individual point of attraction. And now step back a little bit and picture lots of lifetimes and lots of experience and lots of vortices and lots of mass consciousness vortices, and then think about all of that source energy standing in all of those places, knowing what you're asking for and becoming it as your inner being and source energy, God, whatever you want to call it, is aware of your evolution and your expansion and what you're asking for. And now focus upon what we've been talking about this emotional guidance system, and focus upon how when you focus on someone and you hate them, you find fault with them, think about how you feel and acknowledge that you've just pinched yourself off pretty good just now from how your inner being feels about them. So through processes like that, you can show yourself in very real terms how your inner being or how source energy is, how they be. Is source energy love or is it hate? Well, you can demonstrate it for yourself. Don't take somebody's word for it. Don't try to dig up some relic of some religious text that has been buried out there in the desert somewhere and try to translate it into hundreds of different languages and then guide your life by it. Use the guidance system that you were born with. You can tell what source feels like, and you can feel what pinching off source feels like. And so if you come to show yourself what love is and what hate is, then you can come to your awareness of really what's going on. And then you've got this standard to live by, where you understand that in your advocating for yourself, you will never find resistance of your inner being. If you were to violate another person, your inner being would not be cool with that, and you would feel the negative emotion in the process of that. Someone said, well, Abraham, I'm worried about what you're teaching because you're seeming to give everyone permission to just do as they please. And we say, yeah. And they say, what if somebody decides that they would like to be a serial killer? We say, what's that got to do with what we're teaching? And they say, well, they want to do that. They took great delight in it. They reveled in it. We say, you don't know that. You don't know how they were feeling. Sometimes people look like they're winning, and they're not winning. They're losing. They are miserable. They are tortured. They feel terrible, even though a large part of society says, look, they won. You can only judge your winning in any moment or losing in any moment by the fullness of who you are allowing yourself to be. If you are practicing tuning in to who you really are, and you're receiving these impulses, let's say that you are at one of those stoplights that our friend was talking about, and you get an impulse to run the light, and the policeman sees you and wants to give you a ticket, but he didn't know that the guy behind you was out of control in his car and was going to slam into the back of you, but your inner being did. Jerry told a story to Esther almost the day she met him. He was driving through a little town out in West Texas, and he was following. There was a truck of Boy Scouts up ahead, and they were not the kind of Boy Scouts that Jerry remembered being. They were throwing pop bottles out of the back of the truck and holding all the vehicles off. And the truck was going slow, and in those days it was no freeways. You had to pass into the oncoming lane, and nobody could pass the truck because the boys were preventing them from being able to do that. And Jerry, he had plenty of time. He was a little bit annoyed by it, but then realized that he was also a little bit amused by it, and he just sort of settled back. And then he said he heard a voice. We know for sure that he had a strong impulse that he translated into those words that said, drive it on the sidewalk. Drive it on the sidewalk. Well, nobody should be doing that. But he drove his Volkswagen van onto the sidewalk, and at that moment a gravel truck whose brakes had gone out slammed into that car and that car and that car and that car and that car. And the Boy Scouts, they had a lot of trouble. They were hurt. They were hurt badly. And so what was it? Karma? Were they punished for what was going on? And we say there's a bigger part to this story. Everyone in that line was receiving information that it was being revealed from their source, from their inner being, that what was about to happen was this. And they all were being encouraged to get out of the way. But if you have assigned yourself to keeping rules, Esther said they would have smashed me because I wouldn't have driven it on the sidewalk. And in those days, she probably wouldn't have. She would not have done the illegal thing. So it's not an easy thing to define what's right and wrong, is it? Is it? You want to, you would like someone to say, this is what's right and this is what's wrong, and then to tell you, if you do what's right, everything will go well for you, and if you do what's wrong, everything will not go well for you. But this universe isn't built on somebody's perception of what's right and wrong. It's built on everybody's perception of wanted and unwanted. And over all that you have lived and evolved to, and over all that Source has lived and evolved to, there is a knowing of what feels good. You can't even be rude to someone without feeling bad. So once you introduce yourself to your guidance system and you intend to live under the influence of that, then you don't need to worry about it. When a serial murderer or a rapist or slasher or someone comes into your environment, if you could go into their early experience on this planet, you would discover every single time the abuse that was thrust at them, and they just couldn't find a foothold of alignment. And so law of attraction just brought them to more and more and more and more until they get into that revenge state, and that's as good as they can feel. And as you watch them, you might be seeing revenge, but you're certainly not seeing satisfaction. You might be seeing revenge, but you're sure not seeing joy. You're sure not seeing love or appreciation. You're sure not seeing all that they are. So is there a punishing God? No, but there is a punishing law of attraction. Not punishing you because you are inappropriate or bad, but because you are focused upon what you do not want, and law of attraction brings you what you think about, whether you want it or not. And so with all of this law of attraction stuff going on, then humans want to sort it into piles, and into religious piles, and into right and wrong. And mostly they want to control the behavior of one another in order to perpetuate the life experience that they think they want. Well, this world is big enough to accommodate what everybody is and who everyone is and what everyone wants. It's absolutely possible to live in a world that seems like it's disrupted in so many ways and find true happiness every day, really every moment of your life experience. But you will never find that by looking for some laws or rules outside of you to which you are trying to conform. It's the in the moment inspiration that comes to you. Your inner being will always guide you to your path of least resistance. And so if it came right down to it and you receive an impulse to steal something, we want to say to you that that's not coming from your inner being. That's not the path of least resistance that your inner being is offering to you. But it's also not a path of least resistance that for whatever reason felt like the path of least resistance to you. In other words, if your children don't have food and you don't have money, you might think that getting food for them is the path of least resistance. And the means by which you get it is really a sort of irrelevant question, isn't it? And so, it's impossible to sort out what you want to call the rightness and the wrongness of the world. But it's so easy to sort out. How does my inner being feel about this right now? And if that's what you're reaching for, let's say that a lot of people, because it's true of a lot of people, that before you knew about the path of least resistance, before you even were focused upon your own inner being, let's say that you were under the influence of competition and whatever, and wanting to prove yourself to whoever, and let's say that you broke a rule or a law, maybe a big one, and now punishment is looming for you because you're moving through the system where the system is wanting to be very clear-cut about it, and the evidence shows itself, and so there you are. But now you understand about the true path of least resistance. You understand about source energy. You understand about what alignment is. So instead of condemning yourself for what you have done, which holds you in concert with that and shines a spotlight on you, instead of that, we have to stick a story in here first. Woman said to us one day, Abraham, I was driving down the freeway in the San Francisco area of California, and I was feeling really good. Our friend said that to us. I was feeling really good. In fact, she said, I was listening to one of your recordings. And I was pulled over and given a ticket. And we said, what for? For not wearing a seatbelt. I said, how do you feel about seatbelts? She said, I hate them. I don't think I should have to wear them. I think it's up to me. I don't think it's anybody's business whether I wear them or not. And we said, so you're driving down the freeway.